Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and as John Campea calls me, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, Robert Burnett, with another John Campea mailbag for today, Thursday, I believe the 9th of June. 9th of June. Of course, as you know, during the John Campea Show, we take your live questions. You can fire in super chats. We leave them open for just a short period of time. You get them in, we will read them live right there on the show. Any other time, 7 days a week, day or night, our operators are standing by. Link right down below, and you can send us a question, a comment, a review, whatever you want at our tip link. Do that, and if we deem your question appropriate, either I'll read it, John will read it, the two of us will read it. Who knows? Maybe one day Ray Oro will read it. But one day, and that day may never come. No, it should come. Send us in a question. We'll start right now. Let's see what you got to say today. Jonathan Namila sends in a $10 tip and says, hello, John and crew. Well, hello, I'm the crew. It's an honor and a privilege to support the best related movie and TV news show. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. You know, it's all me. That's why it's the best. John, is there ever going to be more Power Rangers movies? I think there are going to be. The Power Rangers franchise has been around for 30 years, longer if you live in Japan, and it's a venerable franchise, and I think we're always going to see reinventions, reinvigorations. I think there probably will be another movie. Maybe it'll be a compilation of TV episodes or something. I mean, I liked that last Power Rangers movie. I thought it was pretty damn good. What can you say? Jonathan Namila comes on to say one more time and says, Rob, will we ever see a Namor, the Submariner movie? Well, I'm not sure what the rights situation is with Namor. I think it was with Universal, kind of like with the Hulk. But, you know, Namor is coming to the MCU, and if he becomes a fan favorite, maybe they'll negotiate what they need to do to make a Namor movie. Technically, Namor is a mutant, so I wonder how that's going to play out in the MCU. Are they going to call him a mutant? I don't know if they are, because remember, like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were called Miracles, even though I think they're going to have to rebrand them as mutants. But I would love to see a Namor movie. I'm a huge fan of Namor. Always liked him, even as a kid. He was, to me, I loved Aquaman, but Namor was cooler and more dangerous. So I would love to see a Namor film. I don't know if we ever will see one. We are going to see him in the MCU this year. I think in Wakanda Forever, right? We'll see. Jonathan Mila goes on to say, hello, John and crew. I just want to say thank you for doing what you love to do. It's amazing that we have the best movie and TV YouTube channel on this earth, the John Campea Show. John, thank you for betting on yourself and inspiring all of us. Bring on the filthy. I just want to say he does bet on Ray. He bets on Jonathan. He bets on me. He bets on Chris. He bets on Aaron. John's a gambler. He's a poker player. Thank you, John, from my bottom of my heart as well. Thank you. It's good. It's true. I believe what you say. Orange Hand sends in a tip and says, George Springer, a Blue Jays player, has been jeered at opposing stadiums due to his involvement in the 2017 Astros scandal, and MLB still won't let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. John, do you think cheating should be forever scorned, or should we ever move on? I believe George Hand is talking about a game. Sporting event. No, I'm just kidding. It's baseball. He asked a really good question. I mean, look, people do bad things. And I think our justice system, especially in this country, is set up to, if you commit a crime and you are convicted and you serve your time, once you've served your time, I believe that you've done that, and we have to wipe your slate clean. That's what our justice system is supposed to be about. And I think, look, I understand there's all kinds of reasons why people cheat, and everybody wants more money for things. I don't necessarily think that cheating should be a lifelong scarlet letter you have to wear around your neck. And it's also the pressure. It's tough. But then again, you know, as long as people do repent, it's a tough issue. But I don't think that if somebody cheats, we should hold it against them for the rest of their lives. I think we should find forgiveness in our heart. Matt McClure says, hey, fam, have you guys seen the show The Chosen? It's a Bible show. It's free. There's an app for it. And let me tell you, it's every bit as good as an HBO Max show. My mind was blown, and you don't have to be a Christian to get into it. It's a great show. Well, Matt, I have to tell you, you're not the first person to tell me this about The Chosen. And as I've said, I've even said it on this show. I think the Bible, both the Old and the New Testament, the Quran, a lot of the great religious texts of the world, a lot of the basis of our fiction and our drama and the stories that we've been telling for thousands of years come out of Scripture. And a lot of the time, they're great stories. I've gone on record saying I'd love to make the ultimate Job movie. So I love biblical stories. I mean, I grew up watching, Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, The Robe. I mean, there's so many great religious movies that I grew up with. I if it's well produced and technically proficient, I'd be totally interested in watching it. And you know what? Since you're not the first person to tell me, I might start having to take it seriously. The Chosen. I'm going to check that out. I've always thought I was that person, The Chosen, but I have to find out. I'm really not, but hey. Kylo Ken says, "Hi guys, when Force Awakens released, many fans speculated that Rey could be a descendant of Obi-Wan Kenobi, that Rey was a product of the relationship of Obi-Wan and Princess Satine. Do you think the sequels would have benefited if they went in that direction?" Look, I think the sequels would have benefited if they had any kind of pre-planning at all. Again, when you're introducing characters like Satine, you kind of have to explain where they come from in terms of lineage and all that, so it might have gotten a little convoluted. But I guarantee you it would have been better than what we got in The Rise of Skywalker. What a disappointment that was. And look, I really think that because it's part of the Skywalker saga, they've made it a family saga from the get-go. That's what it was all about. That's what episodes 7, 8, and 9 were. And I thought as part of a family saga, I think they really sort of failed. But I won't get into that too much right now. Your question was, would it have benefited? I think it might have. I think that would have been a good way to go. And I would not have said no. Jonathan Mila is back. Hello and crew. I just bought the Lord of the Rings theatrical cut and extended cuts, as well as the Hobbit trilogy. You have not seen Lord of the Rings until on 4K Blu-ray. Masterpiece. Peter Jackson's one of the greatest directors ever. Bring on the filthy. Well, you know what, Jonathan? I would say, obviously, I worked on the special features for the Lord of the Rings extended cuts, but those are not on the 4K discs, so that's a bummer. But I will say this. I, too, own the Lord of the Rings on 4K, and they look and sound spectacular. So I'm glad you picked them up. I actually have the steelbooks of both trilogies, 4K steelbooks, and they are beautiful. So you're right about that. Shaneroxas, 1 of 4. Hey, John and or Rob. So my wife and I decided to go to a Fathom event to see The Wizard of Oz. It's one of our all-time favorites, and I always wanted to see it on the big screen, so we decided to go. We got to the theater, and they scanned my phone and tell us where to go. It was a larger theater, and they were playing trailers for all new major releases, which I found a bit odd for Wizard of Oz. Next thing I know, Tom Cruise pops up on the screen and says, "Hi, welcome to Top Gun Maverick." My wife and I look at each other and we realize we're in the wrong damn theater. We ran and eventually found the right one, but we were about 20 minutes into the movie, so you missed the transition between the black and white and the color. We missed Somewhere Over the Rainbow, her favorite part. She's 16 weeks pregnant. Needless to say, there were tears and a tantrum, but in the end, we had a great time. Love the show. Bring on the filthy, my friends. Well, Shane, first of all, kudos to you for trying to go out and see a classic film in the theater. Whenever they do that, I think it's worthwhile. At the Chinese Theater here in L.A., the famous Grauman's Chinese Theater, now it's the TCL Chinese Theater, they revamped it and turned it into an IMAX theater back in 2015. They excavated down and they put up stadium seating, and they put up an IMAX screen, and the first thing that they showed there in the revamped theater was The Wizard of Oz in 3D. So it was a conversion, and with their new laser projection, I went with my friend Dave Hargrove. It was absolutely spectacular. And, you know, seeing The Wizard of Oz on the big screen, it loses none of its power. I mean, I've been watching the movie literally my entire life, and it was, Warner Brothers spared no expense in doing the conversion. It looked amazing on that screen, and I loved it. Now, I would say this. There might have been a tantrum, and there might have been tears, and you might not have seen the entire movie, but when your youngling is born, you now have a great story to tell them. So congratulations to the both of you. I'm glad your marriage has survived missing the first 20 minutes of Wizard of Oz and Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But now you've got a story to tell and a family bonding moment. You can watch, they used to air Wizard of Oz on CBS every year, but now with home video and everything, they don't do that anymore. But now maybe make it a yearly tradition in your own house. And the Wizard of Oz discs are the Blu-ray, I think it's out in 4K. I think I have it in 4K. Beautiful. Transfers are beautiful. By the way, congratulations. Good luck on the baby. And I think it's terrific that you're bringing a new imagination connoisseur, a new movie fan into the world. Remember, show them the good stuff first. Ben B says, hey, John and Rob, I know a topic recently regarding the MCU has been with so much quantity. The quality has dropped a bit. I think they could drop the amount of content they put out. Right now, it's around 8, 3 to 4 movies, 4 to 5 shows, to around 2 to 3 movies. There's a part 2 here. I think with fewer projects, they could make sure the quality of the CG and things like that is up to par, and they could free up some time for Kevin Feige to be more involved. Thoughts? Thanks for a great show. It's the highlight of my day. Well, Ben B, I don't think you're wrong. I think that, there's a lot of pressure on Marvel because of their success to deliver more TV shows for Disney Plus to drive their subscriptions. But, and I have to say this, I've really liked all of the Marvel shows to varying degrees. I really liked the conflict that Sam Wilson had in Captain America and Winter Soldier with himself. Can he accept the mantle of being Captain America? I thought that was a good story to tell. They had to change it up because of the pandemic and things, but I understand. I still liked it. I liked Hawkeye more than I think John did. I just enjoy watching the shows, but I think you're right. I think less shows, maybe longer shows. Maybe do 10-episode or even 13-episode series like they used to do on Netflix with the Marvel stuff, and spend a little bit more time doing them. I'm sure Disney wouldn't like that as much, but I certainly would. I think it's a great idea, but I don't know how it would work out in practice. I think they would still end up they'd be pressured by their overlords at Disney. Marvel would be pressured to deliver the goods, to keep making shows. And I think the first episode of Miss Marvel was new, unique, different. I hope it's great. I can't wait to see She-Hulk and everything else they have coming up. So maybe we're going to get some riches. Major Tom. I never read the Lord of the Rings books before I saw the first movie, so I read the trilogy, The Hobbit and the Silmarillion, before I saw the final 2 movies. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is an achievement that can never be duplicated. Fourth Orlingas. Yes, nice one. I mean, look, obviously Tolkien's Lord of the Rings series, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, those are the template for, I think, all modern fantasy. As Tolkien himself said, what he wanted to do was give the UK its own mythology, the way other countries, or the Greeks, the Norse myths, that UK didn't have its own mythology, so that's what Tolkien did. And because he was a philologist, and because he was a scholar, and he was an incredible imagination. I mean, what came out of his imagination was amazing, and then he drew from other European mythologies. He created something that I don't think will ever be equaled. I mean, it might be succeeded by others with their fantasy tropes and trilogies and all that, but Tolkien is the grand master. I mean, it's where it begins. And I think that, look, what you said is absolutely right. And I think, look, Peter Jackson's trilogy, I don't know if because of the way it was made and who he made it with, I don't know if that will ever be surpassed. And nor do I think it should be. I hope we're going to see Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power from Amazon. We'll know very quickly whether they've even come close to what Peter Jackson was able to do. We shall see, but I completely agree with your assessment of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings works. Great Grapthar's Hammer. That's, of course, a Galaxy Quest reference. Very nice. If there's one ad campaign I really hated seeing in the cinema, it was the anti-piracy ads of the 2000s. You wouldn't download a car. Nothing like paying $20 for your ticket plus concessions only to be lectured to not pirate the movie you're watching. Hey, great Grapthar's Hammer. I'm right there with you. But the thing is, movie piracy is a huge problem for the motion picture business, especially if, like myself, you've tried to produce low-budget horror movies. Low-budget horror movies are some of the most pirated stuff around, and it really hurts. It really hurts the bottom line, and of course, the late, great John Schnepp was very upset by how many people, millions of people, pirated his movie, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, and it used to bother him that his own community wouldn't support him, because if he'd still been with us, he would have been making more shows and more documentaries and more movies, and he needed the previous project to help finance or get financing for his new projects. So piracy can be very difficult. But yes, those ads did grow tiresome, especially if you weren't a pirate and you didn't plan on being one. It got a little annoying to watch. But anyway, I understand where you're coming from. Derek Large says, I just watched One Night in Miami, and wow. Slow start, but by the end, I was completely riveted by these four important men arguing over these important racial, political, and religious issues that are still relevant to this day. What did you think? Well, Derek, I think that's Regina King, I believe, directed that movie. And you have four famous black men from that era all discussing like what you just said. I love the film. You know, I thought I could have watched it for another 2 hours. It's a really great movie, especially today. All of the issues that they're addressing and that they discuss are just as relevant now as they were 50 years ago. And the performances are uniformly excellent. And I would recommend anybody watch that film. And it really does do a good job of delving into the issues of the day. And you watch it and you think, oh, you know, how pertinent is it going to be to our world right now? Oh, it absolutely is. And in a way, it's kind of depressing because you realize how many things just haven't changed. So, yeah, great movie. Good call on that one. Abdullah Aziz says, Part 1, hi. Regarding the new announcement for the Joker sequel, the title is explained as Duality of Delusion, Folie Deux. Do you think Joaquin will do a new Joker character which is linked to Arthur's Joker, or Bruce will have this duality with Arthur since he appeared? In the last scene of the movie, as a hint for his duality of delusion to Arthur's, or will they consider Willem Dafoe's approach for having a Joker imposter against Arthur's Joker? It's a good question. You know, when I first read about the script, it was called Joker Folie Deux, which means that duality of delusion, just like you said. There's also an X-Files episode called that as well. I find it intriguing. A lot of people have talked about the fact that maybe Arthur Fleck is the inspiration to the Joker that we know, or maybe they develop some kind of a twisted relationship together. I don't know what they're doing. I found the title very intriguing. I like this idea that this character of the Joker, of Arthur Fleck's Joker, would then go on to inspire a real Joker, because, I mean, so many people, especially criminals, are inspired by other criminals. So I could buy that. I could see that happening. And what a weird, twisted psychological exercise this film could be if they're going to go in that direction. I think it's a great idea. Again, as I don't know if it would be canonically like the comics, but I never thought that Todd Phillips' Joker movie was canonically like the comics anyway. Just a really interesting character study. So if they decided to go that way, mentor and student, whether it was Batman and Joker or however they're going to do it, or Joker and Joker, it sounds really intriguing to me. I'm excited. And obviously it was an inevitability after that movie made $1 billion on a $65 million spend that they were going to make another one. So not surprising. I hope the script's great. And we already know Joaquin Phoenix delivers. So bring it on. That's what I say. Bring it on. And now, a word from today's sponsor.
We want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's video, Harry's. Now, I happen to be one of these guys that was really fortunate enough to grow up with an absolutely amazing father. Pasquale Campea. And guys, with Father's Day coming up, what better time to share the gift of the Harry's experience with your dad or significant male figure in your life? Right now, you can get a Harry's starter set for just $3 or get free engraving on any premium shave kit for dad when you go to harrys.com/Campea. Harry's gift sets are the perfect gift for any guy in your life, and their Winston razor handle is engravable, so you can make Father's Day even more memorable. Guys, I've been using Harry's razors for a while now, and I can tell you my skin has never felt this damn good. My shaves have never been this smooth. I love Harry's. There's no pricey gimmicks or unnecessary bells or whistles. Their customer satisfaction is the highest in the shaving industry, and there's no risk to try. If you don't like your shave, it's on them. And right now, Harry's is giving their best offer to the John Campea Show listeners. New Harry's customers can get a starter set for just $3, or for a limited time through Father's Day, get free engraving on any premium shave set at harrys.com/Campea. There's never been a better time to try Harry's. Go to harrys.com/Campea to start your own Harry's journey, or to save a few bucks on a gift for a special dad in your life.
And a big thank you to harrys.com for sponsoring this show. harrys.com/Campea. I mean, come on. Look at those. I need to go get some Harry's because, man, look at my face. I don't trim my beard enough. Harry's makes me want to. Deshaun sends in a tip and says, "Hey, John and friends, I have to say I'm confused and downright baffled by the ridiculous comparisons of Phase 4 of the MCU to Phases 1, 2, and 3, as if those phases were perfect, as if Iron Man 2 and 3 didn't happen, Thor Dark World or Captain Marvel didn't happen. Come on, man. Why does everybody diss on Iron Man 3? I don't understand." Look, I think you bring up a good point. The thing about Marvel's Phases 1, 2, and 3 is they built up to Infinity War and Endgame, which, in my mind, are two of the most ridiculously entertaining science fiction fantasy films I've ever seen. The character moments, we loved all those characters, so earned. Thanos being a great villain. I mean, the end of Infinity War, even though obviously there's another movie coming out, was truly surprising. I mean, having our heroes get their asses kicked and lose, and Thanos succeeding with his plan, amazing. So, I mean, I think people look back and you're right. They don't see the flaws. They don't see that everything wasn't perfect. And I think, look, I've really been enjoying Phase 4. I liked Eternals. Really liked Shang-Chi. I enjoyed Black Widow, even though it felt like Black Widow was Phase 3. But everybody's expecting, I mean, post Infinity War and Endgame, everyone's expecting that that's your bar. And I would say no. But then again, the first Iron Man is a fantastic movie, so I can completely understand where you're coming from. But I think they're trying new things. I mean, they can't just repeat their successes. And the fact that they're going in many different directions, I think what they're doing now is they're seeing what works, they're seeing what doesn't work. They're setting up many different directions that they can go in to allow stories to organically be brought forth. And I think that they're going to solidify at the end of Phase 4, they're going to decide where is it. I mean, I think they do kind of know where they're going already, but they're going to find out what works, what doesn't work, and they're going to draw on those things and move forward into Phase 5 and 6 and wherever the hell they're going to go. But I appreciate it because remember, they have a tall order. They lost Captain America, they lost Iron Man, and they lost Black Widow. I mean, that's some of the core, the flavor that the MCU had to work, and they're gone. So they're really starting from scratch in a way, with Thor being obviously an exception. But look, I think we should be excited about where it's going. I can't wait to see where they go. Vinny M says, "Hey, John and friends, I just wanted to let you know I've been watching you since the AMC days. And I have to say, even I go back that far because I was on the 6th episode of Heroes when it was not Collider Heroes. It was AMC Heroes. So I feel I touched the AMC era a little bit. I've been watching you since the AMC days, and because of your influence in my life, I'm studying cinema and journalism so I can be a movie journalist. You are my inspiration, sir. Bring on the filthy." Well, Vinny, I know that both for myself and John, there is nothing better than if somebody tells us our work has inspired them to tap into their own creativity and do something that you have wanted to do. And the fact that you took your interests, you followed up on those interests, you have a passion for it, you're getting an education, and you're going to go out and you're going to use it and add to the tapestry of political and human and social and all of the thought that happens, because every generation needs it, so it's never going to go out of style. So kudos to you, sir, and well done. And that was a 50. Really? I wasn't even paying attention to that number because I was so wrapped up in the great question. $50. Well, Vinny M., thank you for that. Now, I hope that you can go forth and one day somebody is tipping you for your sage-like wisdom and advice. Thank you for that. It's amazing. And by the way, again, congratulations for pursuing your dreams, because many people don't. Michael Kurtz, like Walter Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. Michael Kurtz says, hey, John, I went into Miss Marvel not expecting much. I absolutely loved it. Everything was genuine and earned. However, this is the first time I felt like the super aspect was cheap. Her powers aren't scientific. They're completely magical. You talked about how the MCU is getting getting away probably from that scientific nature of the Avengers. Everything seemed plausible until now. While I was watching, I thought, that can't actually happen. Maybe they'll explain it. Thoughts? Michael, I have to say, I am right there with you. I think one of the things that has, for me, been problematic is they're bringing in, obviously, magic and the supernatural into the MCU. You've got Scarlet Witch's magic. You've got Agatha Harkness. You've got vampires and supernatural coming in. You've got the cursed ebony blade that we saw at the end of Eternals. So they're bringing in the supernatural. I worry that the grounded nature of the superpowers and the technology that we've seen in the previous MCU films is going to sort of spin off into craziness with the supernatural and the idea of magic being added. To be honest, I thought Moon Knight pushed it way too far. And there was, somebody who has dissociative identity disorder, who's a spy, who was inspired by Khonshu is one thing. But when we're watching giant Egyptian gods battle each other by the pyramids, I thought that was a little much for that particular character. And delving into all of this supernatural stuff, it does make it harder to deal with. And I've often said one of the things that makes the MCU so successful is we can believe that those characters are right outside our own windows. It wouldn't surprise us. But with all the craziness that's happening in the MCU now, like with Miss Marvel, it gets a little harder to suspend disbelief. So I think that's a really good point you're making, and you're not wrong. And I don't know where it's going to go. Josh says, Rob said on the mailbag the end of Lost was the afterlife. Not true. Everything that happened was real. Only the season 6 flash sideways was the afterlife, so they could find each other after death. Bugs me like the people who said they were dead the whole time. Well, Josh, here's what I object to. The fact that the afterlife was invoked at all. I thought ultimately that was a cheat. That was obviously something that people thought of from the very beginning. They're in the afterlife. They're in purgatory. What I did not like about Lost, and this is my own thing, the show was so interesting, and the characters I thought were so richly drawn and well defined that at the end of the show, the fact that they all wind up in the afterlife together was like, if that was the case, what did we learn? So they lived their lives out and they were touched by the island and they died. I don't think that was a satisfying conclusion to the show. And a lot of people like it. I didn't personally, and I thought it was kind of a cheat because remember, the idea that we would be dealing with the afterlife at some point had been brought up throughout the show. The whole life of the show, people talk about, well, is that where they are? Are they in purgatory? They really died on the plane, and all of that. When they did finally at the end, doesn't it end? They're all in the same church or something. That just felt like, really? You guys actually went there and you didn't have, and to me, it seemed like they had no other way to explain it all. And that's where they wound up. And I thought, I just didn't like that. It might have worked for other people. which is fine. But look, I've told you my theory on the show before. I said I would have liked to have had the island be a crucible. And for lack of a better word, I said it's God's fingerprint or God's signature that he left on his creation here of Earth. And if you find your way to the island and you survive it, it's a crucible that you go through, and then you go out into the real world and you take that experience and what you've learned, and when you go forth, you help humanity, you push humanity along, whether it's ideologically or the people that have been touched by the island get into positions of power, as we saw, and they do things that advance human civilization. Of course, that was just me. They did set ideas like that up in the show, but I just thought at the end, when you're dealing with the afterlife at all, I'm like, psh, that's because they didn't know where else to go. And it felt like a cheat to me. Josh says, Lost is also one of the few shows that planned out the ending. The creators and Matthew Fox said around the time of season 2, they knew the ending of the show. After finishing my 6th rewatch, I don't think there is a single question left without an answer. Really? I mean, okay, the character, the smoke monster and their rivalry, the two creatures of the island, I guess you'd call them. I don't believe that those characters were defined in season 2, because what they did was they sort of abandoned, in a way, if some of the central conflicts of our main characters are abandoned in favor of new characters, or the fact that they turned the smoke monster into a much more significant character by having John Locke become the embodiment of that smoke monster, there is no way you're ever going to convince me that that's something they were going to do from the beginning of the show. I don't think they were going to do that. And I think that, I mean, when you watch things over and over again, you can imbue them, you bring your own meaning to them. And I've only rewatched the entire show a second time once. And I will say it made me angry, because I could see more of where they're zigging and zagging and changing things around. And there's a lot of questions I don't think that they answered. At least not answered satisfactorily, because I don't think they even knew what the questions were yet. They hadn't defined the questions to give us the answers that were definitive. And another thing I don't like about the show is no one ever sits down and goes, wow, we just traveled through time. How did that happen? You know, the characters just accept everything on that show that's happening to them, and they never stop and have a conversation about any of it with one another. About, this is all amazing stuff. Didn't we die in a nuclear blast? How do we travel through time? I don't know. Let's just go with it. Okay. It was a little weird. Orange Grove 55 says, if I was Bob Chapek, I would start making rounds on the bigger channels like yours to discuss Disney's vision, take questions about concerns, etc. Something like that would go a long way in bringing fans on board. He needs something like that. Here's the thing, Orange Grove. That's not, in theory, not a bad idea. But the problem is that Bob Chapek, who's running a publicly held company that's worth hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, coming on a YouTube show and asking questions would not necessarily be the best thing for the shareholders from a business perspective, especially if Bob Chapek is not used to coming on shows like this and talking. Because while he might be a captain of industry, to come on a YouTube show and accept questions from people like this, not knowing what the questions are and being able to speak extemporaneously about what Disney may or may not want to do, that's a really hard thing to do. And what if he accidentally said one thing that, I don't know, or he misspoke? He could send the stock price tumbling and literally cost people millions and millions and millions of dollars just by misspeaking to fans. So I like the idea of it, but it's the kind of thing where I don't think he would come on a show like this. And even us, John, me, Chris, Aaron, Ray, Fact Checker Jonathan, imagine us firing questions off at Bob Chapek just right here, right now. Who knows what he might say? I don't necessarily think, if I was running Disney, I wouldn't let him do it, to be honest. But it's not a bad idea. I think it would be interesting to be able to question him about his philosophy, but I don't think he would do that on a YouTube channel live, not knowing what the questions are. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, "Hey, John and crew, did you hear that Julia Garner has been offered the role of Madonna in the Madonna biopic? What are your thoughts on this casting, and does it make you more excited for the film? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." Well, Julia Garner is a great choice to play Madonna, I think. I think she's a phenomenal actress. I actually met Madonna on the Who's That Girl tour because I was working through the record company. I was able to meet her backstage at that concert. And I'm a Madonna fan. Lately, she's gotten a little wacky for me, but I mean, I really liked her oeuvre. I mean, my favorite early song of hers was Burning Up. And then I love like the Frozen era that Mark Romanek was directing videos for her. I'm a Madonna fan, and I think seeing a great biopic of hers could be really, really, really great. And I think Julia Garner is the perfect person to play her. So we shall see. Callum says, "Hey, John and Rob, have you guys seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine? I have. It's one of the best sitcoms I've seen and has a wonderful cast with Andy Samberg in the lead and is a must-watch, and has Terry Crews in the cast. The sitcom, in my opinion, is comparable to The Office. I think you will love it." Well, Callum, as you know, I'm not a big sitcom guy, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine I've watched. It's very funny. The cast is great. I've only seen 2 episodes of The Office. I've actually seen a lot more episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so I don't know if I could compare and contrast the two, but I don't think you're wrong. It's a great sitcom, and I'm not even a big sitcom fan, but it's certainly one of the greats. Art is subjective sends in a tip and says, it's one of 2. "Hi, John and Rob. John, I just wanted to thank you for teaching us everything is subjective when it comes to the media. You didn't like Obi-Wan Chapter 4 and loved Miss Marvel. I'm the other way. I love Chapter 4 of Obi-Wan and didn't like Miss Marvel, and that's okay. Anyway, just thank you for teaching us about subjectivity. I appreciate everything you guys teach us. Thank you, and bring on the filthy." Well, art is subjective. As you know, I disagree with John's assessment. I strongly disagree that all art is subjective. I don't think that's true. I think people's opinions of art is subjective, but I think that certain art is objectively great. Now, you might not like something, but that doesn't mean that the art itself isn't objectively great. It means it's not your taste. Just like not everyone loves the same food, but that doesn't mean the food isn't great. Like I can't eat eggplant. I hate eggplant. Never liked eggplant. But there's great, I can almost tolerate eggplant parmesan, almost. But there is incredible eggplant parmesan that chefs have made. Here's the thing. It's objectively great, eggplant parmesan. I just don't like eggplant. So I'm never going to like an objectively great eggplant parmesan dish. My opinion of it is a different thing than what the dish represents. And I think if you look at like the AFI top 100 movies of all time and look at that list, I think that those are objectively great films. Now, some people like some of those films more than others, but those films, history and people have decided that those films are great. Year after year, decade after decade, those films that are on that list stay on that list, and there is a consensus that those movies are objectively great films. Now, whether you think they're great or not, history has proven that they are. That's why I think that there's a certain objectivity in artwork that we have to recognize. But again, I can never recognize a great eggplant parmesan because I hate eggplant. And so that doesn't mean that eggplant parmesan isn't objectively a great dish. So that's my thought about it, if that makes any sense. But back to your point, the fact about Obi-Wan and Miss Marvel, again, 2 very different shows, and you absolutely can like something and have differences of opinion. The real mark of being an adult, I think, growing up, when you move through life, is to understand that you can have differences of opinion with other people and have good discussions about those differences of opinion. Nowadays, people are so quick to take everything personally. If you don't like the show I like, then F you, which doesn't make sense to me, because depending on your education, depending on your taste, like my mom who I love dearly, is just not a very imaginative person. So science fiction movies were just not her thing. Now, give her a good love story or give her a story about tennis or golf, she's in. But I can't expect her to like the same things that I love. That doesn't mean I like her any less. It just means that her tastes are different. Her subjective tastes are different than mine. And that's kind of how I see it. And that's good. That's what makes the world go round. I wouldn't want to hang out with people that love everything I love exactly the same way I love it. I wouldn't learn anything otherwise. So, Captain Dr. Hawkeye 4077th. Now, a lot of you kids won't understand how cool that name is, but that is, of course, Hawkeye Pierce, Alan Alda's character from MASH. That's a MASH reference. There's the movie MASH, directed by Robert Altman, and then the great TV series, I think ran 11 years, that even surpasses the film in its legendary greatness. But good call. He says, I consider you and Robert as the modern-day Siskel and Ebert. Hashtag stay Schweddy. Well, that's very high praise. I mean, Roger Ebert's one of my favorite film writers. He has a series of books he's called The Great Movies. And if you are movie fans, I highly recommend, and who isn't watching this channel, I highly recommend picking up Roger Ebert's books, multiple volume set of The Great Movies. They're great books. They'll inspire you. They'll put a smile on your face, and they might make you want to go see a bunch of movies you've never seen before. They're great. And Gene Siskel as well. And Gene Siskel used to hang out at the Playboy Mansion, so I mean, Playboy Mansion or The Great Movies, both guys, they had it going on. So thank you for that comparison. I very much appreciate it. Shaneroxas is back, 1 of 4. Hey, John, I actually enjoyed episode 4 of Kenobi and the series as a whole, but I'm really confused about the approach. There are literally thousands of directions they could go, but they chose to intersect them with Leia, which in turn kind of breaks canon. With that, there's the issue with the Grand Inquisitor. How did they just let this slide? I love seeing Ewan back and seeing his struggle to return to his former glory, but everything else just feels a little lazy. Even Vader, to me, just feels weird. I'm afraid this series will wrap up like everything else on Disney+, all too abruptly and with many questions unanswered. I would rather a Kenobi movie defending his secrets and Luke against the gangs on Tatooine or something instead of this canonical mess. Yet, I still kind of dig it. Laugh out loud. I wouldn't be a Star Wars fan if I wasn't pissed off in some way, shape, or form. Bring on the filthy. Well, Shane, you bring up a really good question. I mean, here's my thing. You know, I'm a Star Trek fan. I grew up with Star Trek. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fan. It gives me no pleasure when I see Star Trek I don't like. I also don't understand how a lot of the Star Trek that gets made, how it gets made. Like, why did somebody choose this story to tell? I feel kind of the same way you did about Obi-Wan. Like, I enjoyed the first episode. I like watching it. It's fun to watch. But they've made a story where Ben Kenobi goes and rescues Princess Leia. We always talk about how the Star Wars universe seems so small. Well, if you think about it, we already saw Obi-Wan go rescue Princess Leia in a movie called Star Wars back in 1977. It's so strange to me that with all of the extended universe novels and all the stories that they could tell, they chose to give us this story. Of all the stories, why this story? Why do we have to bring Princess Leia into it? Why do we have to go rescue her again? And by the way, they've now rescued her twice. Kenobi has rescued her twice in 4 episodes, which kind of makes him look kind of like a boob. You know, I mean, he didn't rescue her the first time because he confronted Vader. She got recaptured, and he had to go get her again. And now, what's going to happen next? I think I'm always perplexed because here's the thing. When George Lucas made Star Wars, he was inspired by lots of other things. Flash Gordon serials, inspired by samurai movies that, of course, Kurosawa made, whether it was The Hidden Fortress that he borrowed liberally from, or Seven Samurai or something else. That, and of course, the hero's journey, the myths that Joseph Campbell delved into, the collective human myths that we have. So why is it when they make new Star Wars, they only look back at other Star Wars? Why don't they look outside of Star Wars? Like if you were going to, The Mandalorian looks to the great Westerns, and I think maybe that's why literally you have marshals and dusty towns and people having blaster fights in the middle of those towns. Star Wars was inspired by other things. So if you're going to tell a great Star Wars story, you should be inspired by something that isn't Star Wars. Go back and watch the great Westerns. Watch the great Japanese films. Watch European gangster movies. Italian gangster movies or French gangster movies. Go look at the work of like John Pierre Melville, who's somebody I really like. Like he made a movie about an assassin, basically, Le Samurai, that stars Alain Delon, and it's set in modern Paris. I would have looked at that as an Obi-Wan movie. I mean, what if Obi-Wan became some kind of a hired gun? You know, that's what he was doing. He had to make money. He had to have stuff that he could protect Luke with. I mean, you could have done a million different stories. The fact that they chose this story to tell is a little disappointing because it makes the galaxy small, and all it does is diminish Obi-Wan, I think. But a good question. Circa Magoo sends in a $20 tip. Hey, team, I just watched the first episode of Miss Marvel and absolutely loved the relatable ground-level perspective of the first 3/4 of the episode. Is it time for a non-supercentric MCU project a la Alex Ross's The Marvels? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Circa Magoo, I've been saying for a long time we should do a Marvels series. So for those of you who don't know, Marvels was a limited series written by Kurt Busiek and illustrated by Alex Ross that looks at the Marvel universe, the comic universe, from the perspective of the man on the street, a reporter. How do regular human beings perceive all of this superhero gobbledygook? It was amazing. It really grounded the MCU, and we saw the MCU through the minds and through the eyes of regular human beings. It was fantastic. I would love to see a Marvel's TV series. Love it, love it, love it, where they could replay events from the MCU and we see them from the perspective of people who are affected at the street level. It's a great, great, great idea, and I'm behind that wholeheartedly. I think it's a really, really good idea you have. I don't know if they'll do it, but I guarantee you it's been spoken about because Marvel's is such a seminal historical moment in Marvel Comics history that I think for sure they're talking about doing a show like that. It's just how would they do it? It'd be tough. Kandak, a.k.a. Trench, says, I was hyped for the Black Adam movie. Then I watched the trailer. I'll see it for Sarah Sahai, who was great in Person of Interest, but the yucky yellow filter over the footage and the random rap music took me out of it. Enough rap music in trailers, please. Well, a.k.a. Trench, I have to tell you, I felt kind of the same way. There's some cool imagery and all that, but what's the story? How is this different from any other superhero story? And it looked like they had elements that are different, but I have to say, I was really, really disappointed in the trailer. I wanted to know more of what is Black Adam's journey in this film, just that he kills other people. Other superheroes don't kill, I do. Okay, and what are you going to do with that? So I didn't see anything. Look, I love seeing the Justice Society, but whether they're cameos or not, what is the story of Black Adam? What story are they telling me? And if I don't get a sense of what the story is, like cool visuals, I take it for granted. Yeah, Black Adam flying between jet fighters. That was cool, but I've seen that. I saw Iron Man fly between jet fighters. It's cool. Dwayne looks great, but I want to know what's the story being told. That's the thing that's most important to me. And I'm like, well, Black Adam's a badass. Okay. That's your story. I need more. Give me more. So I don't disagree with you. Joseph Michael says, because Marvel has a much better track record of success than Star Wars, period, is it possible that Disney could be trying to sabotage the success of Obi-Wan by running Miss Marvel at the same time as Kenobi? Absolutely not. I don't think that's true. Remember, the people at Disney don't think their shows suck. You know, they're doing the best they can with what they've got. They think they're all great. I think it's time. Disney Plus needs to have more unique content on their platform. Star Wars and Marvel, are different shows. Remember, think about when when networks would put on primetime shows. There's a new show at 8, a new show at 9, a new show at 10. And they would start on the same day, like in the fall. They used to anyway. So having somebody release 2 shows at the same time is not anything unusual. You just pop over and watch one and then watch the other. There's some Star Wars fans that don't like the MCU and vice versa. So I think they're not trying to, nobody wants to sabotage their own shows. Trust me, these shows are incredibly expensive to make. They want these shows to work. And so do we, frankly. So no one is trying to sabotage anybody because they're all working, remember, for Disney Plus. So they're all shows basically, they plus the very platform they're on. So I don't think that there's any strange rivalry or anyone's trying to sabotage anyone. Connor Patterson sends in a tip and says, "Hi, John and/or Rob. It's me. By the time you read this, it will be a special day for me. I've completed my college degree as a film major with an entrepreneurship and music minor at the University of Oregon. When coming into college, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do, be a musician. But throughout my first year, I realized that I was struggling to get through my general education classes, and I was contemplating, is this the right path for me? This is when I found this channel. I'd always loved movies, but I found out that I had a passion for them after watching this show, and I changed the directory of my career to reflect that. This channel has been here for me every day through that journey, and even I announced my engagement on this channel in January. I will be graduating Sunday, June 12th, that's this Sunday, and we'll be moving from Oregon to Orange County with my fiance to start my new job as the lead creative officer for a video and social media ad agency in the area. Well, Connor, congratulations. Thank you so much, John Campea crew. I truly could not have done this without your support. P.S. I go by Peppermint Patty on YouTube, and I also watch Midnight Musings on the Post Geek Singularity. Well, thank you. We're back this weekend. Connor, again, first of all, congratulations on your success. But I want to also additionally congratulate you on, to me, I've always thought of college as a time to explore. You know, obviously you have to have general education, you have to declare a major, but when you're in college, it's the ability where you're no longer constrained by public school or private school or high school where you have to learn these things. You're now in charge of your own destiny. You have to pick a path. And I think that one of the great things about going to college is to do that kind of exploratory outreach. You know, intellectually, who are you as a person? What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And I think college is the time when you're supposed to think maybe, or because of the input you get while you're at college, you change it up. You make a decision to go somewhere else, do something new, you know, maybe go in a direction you hadn't contemplated before based on new information. And, you know, it's great to hear like that you're graduating from college. You already have a job set up that's bringing you into the field that you've been studying. That's great work, and that speaks also to what you've done while you were in college. Congratulations on your nuptials and all the things that you've done. And you know, stay in touch with us because you never know. As you know, we have advertising on this channel, and if you need to place advertising somewhere, we're always open to new sponsors. So I think it's great what you've done, and I think you should take pride in the fact that you went to college and did exactly what you were supposed to do, and you made it happen on your own. You did the work, and the fact that we were here to support you and inspire you, I mean, that means the world to us. You know, we think sometimes it's hard to remember, like, we just roll in and do the show. But I don't even remember. I'll tell you a funny story. I lived in Pasadena for a long time, and one day I went into a restaurant there called the Cheesecake Factory, and this guy, the maitre d', freaked out that I was there. He's like, "Oh my God, you know, you're Robert Meyer Burnett. I see you on Collider Heroes." And I said, you're on YouTube all the time. And it was so funny because it was the first time I was recognized in the wild by somebody. And I, at first, didn't know what they meant because I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I watch you on YouTube." I literally had to stop and think about, oh, yeah, like I'm on YouTube, because back then I was just doing Heroes. And it never occurred to me that people actually watched us. I know that seems weird, but when you come into this room, here's John, Chris is here. I got Ray right over there. I got Jonathan there, and we're recording a show, but we're just in a room hanging out. John does the research and sends out the show notes. We read them. Jonathan sets up the show and produces the show. Ray's interacting with everybody in the live chat. So maybe Ray gets more of a sense that there's actually people watching. But for us, we're just talking to each other. And the idea that we can inspire people, and much less that people know who we are and pay attention to what's going on, I think it's fantastic. It's something I forget. And whenever we hear that, when people say that they've changed their lives or based on something they've seen on the show, there's nothing more flattering and there's nothing more amazing to me than hearing that. So thanks for writing in. I very much appreciate the support of the channel and all of the words. Good luck. Go out there and do some good. Kit says, hi, John and crew. I've been enjoying your shows daily on VOD. Thanks for making such a great show. Fun fact, Bruno's actor, Matt Lintz, was one of the finalists for Spider-Man's actor along with Tom Holland. Imagine if both of these guys swapped roles. I'm glad you love the show. Man, it's interesting to think about that when actors switch roles, and I honestly, I don't know what it would have been like. Tom Holland is so good as Spider-Man. I'm not saying that no one else could have been as good as him, but it would have been interesting to see he's so good as Spider-Man. He's played Spider-Man more. He's been in, not just his own movies, but of course he was in Infinity War and Endgame. He was in Civil War, where he was introduced. And I can't imagine the world without Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But it's always interesting to contemplate what another actor might have done with the role. So fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Well, that is it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies. Thank you from all of us at the John Campea Show for sending us in some great questions, great things to talk about, and your kind words are always appreciated, but it's always great to interact with our viewership. And I think we have one of the greatest communities on YouTube. So thank you for that and supporting the channel. My name is Robert Burnett. You can find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on my own YouTube channel, Post Geek Singularity, or our website, postgeeksingularity.com. I want to give a very special thanks to producer Jonathan Boyko for producing the show and for Ray Ora to be here. And whenever I can make Ray laugh, he's my audience of one. So see, just laugh right then and there. It makes the show even better. Thanks very much. And remember, if you want to send questions in, the tip link is right down below. And if you do so and we deem it appropriate, you might be on the next episode of Mailbag. And I guess I should say, well, bring on the filthy. The episode of The Boys, new episode tonight. I hope they do bring the filthy, because we're going to get Herogasm this season, and that's the filthiest thing I've ever seen in any comic book ever. I don't know how they're going to do that on the big screen or on the TV screen, but I'm willing to find out.